That was really what we wanted you guys to get at, is what is unique about this animal and how specific can you be about what is unique about it. So what's weird about this trail is this is like pretty much a direct register walk.
But he's always offsetting.
But always there's one set that doesn't direct register. So that's what drew our attention to this. Like, well, this is super weird. You know, we have a direct register walk, but then every other one is an offset, right? Doesn't step on top of the other one. If you look at this foot closely, it's really weird. Like it's not landing flat. It's like landing crooked. So this is an injured or a deformity. You know, it could have been born like this, or it could have been injured. And so then it's about, we wanted you guys to figure out that something was going on with this leg, whether you said injury or, you know, deformity, I don't know. That's fine. No way to probably prove that. But which foot is it is the question. So it looks big, right? This one looks big. And the reason it looks big, I would say, is because it is pushing itself out. But if you look up here, actually, we have trying to figure out which track came first. This track here deposited into that track, okay? And right here, this track deposited into that track. This track pushed a plate into this track. This track completely dumped a ton of stuff into this track, meaning that this track that was injured came after, okay? So this is like a right hind foot is what we wanted.
And also, if you get on the other foot, if you get a clean register and you measure it against the one over here, you can tell it's a little bit smaller. So,
okay, cool.
I mean,
Yeah. I mean, at first I thought it was a front, and then we just went through this and we just figured out, you know, which one came first, and right, it has to be a hind.
Yeah.
I don't
And that
mind
was-
when I just don't know.
I put that it was dragging both hind cleaves.
I hate when I
Okay.
I'm seeing drag
directing and
marks
then
with
change it.
both hind cleaves coming through.
That's true. Sometimes the other hind drags.
I mean,
So hang on.
And
Let's
yeah,
show me where you
here,
see
come
that.
back here.
We are dragging
I double
here
checked
as
it
well.
back here.
Here too.
And there.
I mean, it's back here.
Looks like
too.
it drags both.
All
So
through here.
okay,
Here's
so
one here,
But that other
here,
hoof,
here,
like, actually
here.
looks
All
like
three,
it
this
formed a
set
little
right
bit.
here, all three of these have the hind.
okay, so what I agree with that.
Here.
I agree with that, and what I would say is happening in this instance is compensating for this injured right hind leg.
Right, but are you saying that I wrote dragging both hind cleaves won't be right because I didn't specifically say injured? I wrote deer
yes.
limping initially and then changed it to be more like
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
dragging both its hind feet.
what we really want is to identify that there's something really unique about the right hind foot. This foot, yes, it's dragging a bit, but if you just saw this absent this, you wouldn't even look twice at that. You'd just be like, okay, deer dragged his foot slightly. That happens all the freaking time. But the fact that this foot, the cleaves are like all crooked and weird, and it's like pushing in, and it's like doing this, you know, it's basically just like limping along with this foot kind of sideways, like its hip has been broken at one point or something. So, I mean, what we really wanted was something to do with the right hind foot. The right hind foot is injured, or it's deformed, or, you know, something to identify this as the right hind foot. I do see what you're saying.
Hate these what happened things because you just never know. I was like, I don't want to come up with some big fucking story about this deer, so I'm just gonna say it's dragging both its hind legs.
But so,
Because I was just like,
I
what's
mean,
unique about it?
yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I think
I mean, I noticed how
You just-
freaky this cleave was,
right.
and I was trying to figure out, is it broken? Did it and that's why it's like dragging its feet through, and I just simplified. Like I said, I wrote deer limping initially and just didn't simplify it.
so. What was when you just wrote? What did you actually turn in as an answer?
I backed it down to something more basic and turned in dragging both hind cleaves.
Got it. So then, were you asked a follow up? You said both. Okay.
Yeah, he
So you
asked me which
specifically
side
said-
of body, and I said both, because they're dragging both of them.
Okay. Well, I mean so that's not wrong. I would refer back to what we always say is to be as specific as you can be. You know. So
Well, and I'll jump in on this too.
Yeah.
Because I saw you're dragging both, but the thing is we could say that this super messed up hind right foot is dragging a little bit. But when we look at this pattern, is it a little tiny bit of drag jumps out right away, or is it there's something else?
It's the side by side.
It's the side by side. It's that half of this gait is completely atypical, walking like a raccoon, so to speak, than the rest. So if we were to take out, could I borrow some notebooks? Little notebooks, preferably. A couple more. And I'll use my phone for this. So when we look at this, we just have a deer walk. It's like, okay, we've got our zigzag pattern. Might be a little bit narrower because it's got some compensation going, but we've got cloppity, 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 cloppity. It just so, like, this is all completely perfect. We know from our patterns, like I probably, if I were walking through this, I wouldn't even notice that this little back end of the outside of this cleat is dragging every time. If I was, I'd be pretty stoked on myself. And sometimes it's not even. And so this isn't about a tiny bit of drag on both feet. It's the fact that this thing is a completely obvious discrepancy in all of the hundreds of walking deer trails that we find all the time. What we want to see is that you walk up on this and immediately you say, something's wrong with this deer. Mm-hmm. And then you figure out which foot it is and you say, okay, cool. We've got an injury. If you stick an arrow in an animal and you have a whole bunch of them, you want to be able to see this, say. If you were just walking along, we want to be able to see this. We want to look down at this and immediately recognize that this is not a weird gait. This is something wrong with this animal. Now, we could say, oh, cool, that's also contributing to some drag on the other foot.
Again, this is, I mean, I know we want to move on and things like that, and I guess I understood that the animal was injured. I did not understand how to communicate the answer, so that's frustrating to me. We don't need to keep.
I understand.
We don't need to keep at it.
Well, I just got one question. How did we pick the right side?
We can all
Like, because I feel like when I've had an injury, I walk lightly on my side that's not injured. I mean, that is injured. And so that's why I picked the left side, because I was thinking, oh, it's like trying to be putting less weight on it and then overcompensating with the right side.
Great. So something to think about here too is when you walk lightly, a lot of times, and you'll see this when something's walking lightly, you know, you get the like, and it's a lighter step. In this, we've got a full register. So this animal is coming down. This hind foot is looking like it's actually bearing weight. Like, this doesn't seem like an injury. This seems like a healed injury. Okay. Like, this animal's plodding along, this foot's swinging out, its hip is jacked up or whatever it is, it's pushing in, you can see this entire thing is pushing off. It's actually, so it's twisting, it's putting weight onto it. Not only that, it's twisting it into the ground with every step.
Gotcha.
And so that's what's lending to this, and you're like, oh, which is cool because it's telling us a different story. It's telling us about, I don't know if you guys have found like femurs and stuff from old dead elk and things that have been shot through and re-healed, and I can show you guys a photo of one if you want to see, but it's amazing what these hunted animals have to put up with. And they heal through, and you just get this insanely deformed bone. Sometimes they elongate out and they're hobbling along, looking all weird, but they're just living life. And that's what this story is telling more of than because a lot of times, if an animal's hind leg is busted, it doesn't use it at all. It's doing this, and you can see that in the trail as well. But this is just plodding, it's four-legged, and it's like, but it just so happens that it's like, oh, weird. And that is important to be able to look at and sort through any way of communicating anything and just say, this isn't right, and this is what's wrong with this animal.
So if they just wrote lame deer, that would not be specific enough?
We'll look through all the answers again.
Unless you write it down.
Oh, okay.
I would have asked for more.
Because I'm not taking the test, I was just curious. I would have just wrote
If
lame deer, but
somebody
I
wrote
wouldn't
something that
thought
was
about
not specific enough, like we were going to ask to be more specific. That was the.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Because I wrote down a limp, and he made me go specific. And I got
Oh, okay. Okay. So somebody would have clued me in if I was really taking the test. Okay.
I mean, if you said that it's, if you said like it's
I
a
got you.
five-legged deer, then I wouldn't have a question.
Right.
And how was the
Okay.
question framed again?
Exactly this way. On this trail identified by that track, within this trail, what is unique about this animal?
Right.
And that was, every single person got that exact same
Right.
verbiage.
So when you're asking about like, well, maybe it was limping more on the other side.
Some people came in with it's limping on the right. Some people said
Some people
it's
said
limping
front.
on behind.
Yep, some
and I
people-
said, can you give me also more size
Yeah.
body or also front? In the case of anybody who had something different.
I mean, I think as
for
far as like
both
what's
side-
unique though,
Yeah,
is like
somebody
it-
said both sides. I said, are you sure you don't want to be more specific? The answers are written down.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate some of what Casey was saying is that it's not. We weren't even asking specifically what part of the animal was injured. We're asking what's unique about this trail, and to me, when Casey had those tracks covered up with the notebooks, I mean that's the part that is totally unique. You have two side by side, one, two side by side, one. You just don't see that, and so that was the question: what's unique about this trail?
Well, we agreed that we would ask it what's unique about this animal.
Yep.
Okay, so what was
Which is
unique
fine.
about this animal?
Right,
Okay.
and we did one another.
From the
right behind.
tracks. Wasn't it from the tractor?
No, we did animal.
We did that specifically.
Okay.
And I made sure that was exactly how it was.
Okay.